Welcome to another episode, everyone. Prison is simply not for the meek. Check this out. As a white supremacist stabs a booty bandit 67 times. Look, right here. Caught on camera. Man, look at this. Check this out. Look. Those are not punches. Wearing him out. Let me go back to that so y'all can see that from the beginning. Look at it. Got some in his hand, wearing him out down there. Stay free.
You need to SWAT down here, full gear.
I ended up getting shot and stuff like that on the yard, and with a guy that was a notorious booty bandit.
It was an older guy, a black guy. I can't even remember his name. Homosexual predator.
I was 19 and this guy was in his late 40s, and we were on the yard, and it came to either, he says, if you want respect, you're gonna have to come and get some respect. I went into the situation that I'm gonna have to kill the guy. I'm not gonna just hurt him. I'm not gonna stab him 2 times and say, yeah, we're even. Because the philosophy in prison is, you stab me, I kill you. I just stabbed the shit out of him, until he didn't move anymore.
You have predators. You have homosexual predators, and they're gonna test you.
I knew that it was a strong hit because of the color of the blood, and it's dark, and that's a sign that where you got an artery or a vein or something like that.
Why did you stab him so many times?
All I can explain really is that he kept moving. I made a decision when I walked in the game that I was gonna come in there as a man and I was gonna leave as a man. I wasn't gonna resort to things that a lot of people in my situation had to do to survive in prison. I wasn't gonna suck dick. I wasn't gonna wash people's laundry. I wasn't gonna tell on people. I wasn't gonna fall into that structure to survive. With any kind of white guy that stands up for, his people, he's looked upon as some type of racist race hater. And that's not the case. There's more, white people that need adjusting than anybody else. I don't believe in the heaven and hell thing. It's a control mechanism to control the masses, and it's run by fear. And I don't believe in any fiery pits or any pie in the sky. I think once you're dead, you're dead.
Troy Kell, a young kid who became notorious for shooting a man 6 times in the desert, stole his wallet and then bought 2 bottles of liquor from a nearby store. Then he went to prison and stabbed the guy 67 times until he couldn't move anymore.
During the course of that, we actually found a letter, and it was a letter that Troy Kell had written probably 10 days to 2 weeks prior to the homicide here in Utah. And he was writing some of his white supremacist inmate friends in Nevada. And in that letter, he talked about and actually prophesied that he was going to commit this crime in Utah. He talked about how in his terms, a nappy-headed monkey had been running his mouth, and this nappy-headed monkey was going to get his, and there's going to be pain and suffering involved in that. I went into the situation that I'm going to have to kill the guy.
Yeah, see, what gets me, though, is with a lot of these situations and a lot of these people is, like the comment that he just made before we find out what he was putting inside of these kites to his white supremacist friends in Nevada. In the comments, and he just said that, whenever a white man stands up for himself, people like to say that he's racist. It has nothing to do with race. There are more white guys that need adjusting than anything. It has nothing to do with race. I mean, the most hateful individuals, understand this, are going to deny racism, are going to deny that they're racist. We see it time and time again. There's so much racism in this world and in this country, but there are no racists. I don't get it. This dude's a white supremacist. He's sitting there talking about a nappy-headed monkey to his white friends, but then he just told you that it has nothing to do with race. Before we found out what was in the kites, y'all probably would have took his word for it.
I'm not gonna hurt him. I'm not going to stab him 2 times and say, yeah, we're even. You know, because the philosophy in prison is, you know, you stab me, I kill you. I just stabbed the shit out of him, you know, until he didn't move anymore.
So here's the question. Was Troy Kell a monster, a white supremacist, a killer? Or did system turn him into one? Let's find out. So let's time travel back to year 1968, when Troy was not a criminal, but a young kid with dreams.
Well, Troy used to come over to our house when he was like 7 years old, play with Sandy and Shane in the backyard or go swimming. He was one of the neighborhood kids. Good kid.
Then he turned 18, and then he did something that shocked the whole country.
You have to realize why Troy Kell went to prison. And that being, at 18 years old, he concocts a scheme with a couple of his friends to take a young man he's never met before in his life, a young man named Cotton Kelly, take him out in the desert, take out a gun. Troy Kell takes out a gun and shoots him 6 times at close range in the face, killing him. After the killing, takes his wallet, and they go by a convenience store and buy liquor.
But here's the question. Why did he brutally and viciously murder James Cotton Kelly to death? Why?
I met Cotton Kelly at Circus 8 months prior to this actual tragedy. He ran some type of adult entertainment business. He wanted me to pose nude for him. He had started following me and calling my house constantly, harassing my family. And as a 15-year-old child, I made a very bad decision, a very immature request, and I called upon Troy to beat the man up, to have him leave me alone.
This guy, I felt, was taking advantage of a friend of mine, and she asked for my help. And I went kind of overboard. Me and a friend of mine from high school agreed to beat this guy up because he was doing some things to some teenage girls that we knew. She was a friend of mine. She was like a sister kind of to me.
And after the murder, the story somehow got even stranger.
Police say this desert landscape near Rancho and Durango was the stage of a grisly show and tell this past week. Police say the 3 suspects spent a week going back and forth here in the desert, showing off the body to their friends. Then one of the small children who had seen the battered corpse got to feeling guilty and told police.
On paper, they called it the show and tell murder. At the age of 18, Troy Kell walked into prison carrying a life sentence. Most people never come back from that. Troy made a decision.
I made a decision when I walked in the game that I was gonna come in there as a man and I was gonna leave as a man. I wasn't gonna resort to things that a lot of people in my situation had to do to survive in prison. I wasn't gonna suck dick. I wasn't gonna wash people's laundry. I wasn't gonna tell on people. I wasn't gonna fall into that structure to survive.
At the time, it sounded like a promise, but inside prison, promises like that come with a price, because prison had its own rules. So let's talk about his prison journey, which started in a Nevada state prison, where he learned the rules.
I was fortunate in the sense of some older guys seen that I had a lot of time to do, and I stuck up for myself, so they kind of put me under their wing on schooling me, on showing me who was who on the yard and what to stay away from. Don't get in gambling debts, don't get in any kind of drug debt.
You have predators.
Yeah, and we hear this all the time, right, about these gambling debts. A lot of these situations start over these gambling debts. And so, okay, this is a cold individual here, Troy Kell. As we see, he kidnapped the one individual, if you will, shot him in the face, close range, 6 times. An individual he had never met before, took his wallet and then went shopping for liquor on camera, apparently. Now stuck with a life sentence, goes to prison, and he's in Nevada prison, yeah? And takes hold of a group there in Nevada, in the Nevada prison system. What group is this? Who is his friends now? Who is he connected with? Who has he subscribed to? Well, we know a supremacist group, of course. The individual who just said that it's not about race. Nevertheless, apparently he's tough, and these individuals, my people just don't get it. You have to be prepared. You have to be ready for a fight, man.
He had homosexual predators, and they're going to test you.
At this young age, Troy learned something crucial in prison, that the currency for survival was violence. Because violence could do two things. It earned respect and kept the predators away. And every lesson Troy learned after that built on the same idea.
I ended up getting shot and stuff like that on the yard, and with a guy that was a notorious booty bandit.
It was an older guy,
A black guy, I can't even remember his name. Homosexual predator.
I was 19 and this guy was in his late 40s, and we were on the yard, and it came to either, he says, if you want respect, you're gonna have to come and get some respect. So I had to make sure that wasn't gonna be tolerated. That meant that they break it up by shooting rounds at you from the waist. It's called skip rounding. I mean, it stopped the fight. It blew me off my feet.
He was 19, and he just learned the only lesson the yard teaches.
A lot of my personality now is reflected from how I was raised in the penitentiary. It desensitizes you. You don't have the human interaction, the contact, understanding or anything. It's structured that everybody's a piece of shit. You shouldn't respect anybody.
Hold on to that. Everybody's a piece of shit. Nobody gets respect. That's the man Utah State Penitentiary was about to inherit. Every year inside reinforced the same lesson. Respect came through fear. Fear came through violence. Years later, another inmate named Lonnie Blackman would cross paths with Troy, and that meeting would change both men forever. One would die, the other would spend the rest of his life explaining why. Around this time, Troy met a white inmate named Eric Daniels.
When I arrived at prison, I came to prison for forgery. I forged a $300 check. That's what I was in prison for. I was serving a sentence of a 1 to 15. I wasn't placed in like a minimum security prison for forgers. I was placed in a super maximum security prison for murderers.
Eric Daniels was a co-defendant to Troy Kell, and in fact was the individual during the homicide that laid across the victim's leg so as to incapacitate the victim from moving. The ironic thing, had been sent to prison on a 0 to 5, somewhat minimal forgery case. So Eric Daniels went from a small-time crook to never going to see the light of day outside of a prison again.
Unlike Troy, Daniels wasn't a murderer. He was in prison for forging a check, but prison has a way.
Yeah, well, he is now. He participated in it. He's accessory to one, or just not even an accessory. He just straight up helped assisted in the murder. Clearly, he's holding the individual's legs down. But that's just bewildering, considering that he went on a 1 to 15-year sentence for a forgery, a nonviolent crime, and 1 to 15-year sentence. I don't know how it works out there. Apparently, he was in Nevada first, maybe, wherever he was at. I don't know about 1 to 15. You don't normally get sentences like that in California. 1 to 15 years, be maybe 5 to 7 or something. Not 1 to 15. Such a broad difference. But nevertheless, he probably looking at doing the 1 year, 2 years is for a forgery. But now, as the narrator there said, he has life in prison. I'm sure that was a brutal murder. It looks like. Right? It's blurred out, understandably so. But we can see what's going on. You see him holding the individual's legs down on the ground. I didn't know what he was doing at first, but he's holding the man's legs so that he can't get away. And then the other dude is owning. Troy Kell is owning him on top of him, wearing him out. He had to have been some way to get away. I don't know how he found himself in that situation. I don't know what happened. I mean, he says that he was a booty bandit. I don't know. Clearly, this is a racist individual. So, and this was a black man. So I don't know that the black man tried anything with this man. We don't even interact like that inside of these prisons. He tried this with a supremacist, a young dude, and just tried to take his manhood. I'm not so sure. Who knows why this transpired? This is his side of it.
way of putting very different men in the same place.
Here I am, a forger, living on death row. I was interacting and recreating with three guys that had death sentences that were going to be executed within the next 3 or 4 years, and I'm in prison on forgery. That's how I ended up becoming involved in violent situations.
A forged check, period. That's what put Eric Daniels in the building with Troy.
You're in your cell for so long by yourself. You have no television, no radio, very little contact with the outside world. You develop different symptoms of mental illnesses, paranoid, schizophrenic, anxiety disorders, impulsive behaviors.
By now, prison had already shaped both men under the same wing. One who learned that respect is something you take with a blade. One who learned there's nothing left to lose. The only thing missing was a third man to point him at. That man happened to be Lonnie Blackman. And before anyone paints Lonnie a saint, he wasn't.
This was a victim who had a quite storied past in Arkansas, had been in trouble with the law, including armed robbery, had some violent tendencies in Arkansas, and in fact had committed some assaults on guards in Arkansas, committed assaults on inmates in Arkansas.
Two violent men kept in the same wing. And as the prison OGs say, prison beefs don't start with blood, they start with words.
I had a confrontation with him verbally that derived from two other people's fight that kind of, flowed over to me getting involved with him. And it was kind of agreed between me and him that we were going to take care of it. That any chance that either one of us got, that we were going to deal with the situation.
In other words, both men knew where it was headed. And here's where the story splits in two. First, here's the first version he wrote 2 weeks before the killing.
And he was writing some of his white supremacist inmate friends in Nevada. And in that letter, he talked about and actually prophesied that he was going to commit this crime in Utah. He talked about how in his terms, a nappy-headed monkey had been running his mouth, and this nappy-headed monkey was going to get his, and there's going to be pain and suffering involved in that.
He didn't decide in the moment. He deliberately planned it, and he told his friends why.
I would classify myself as a separatist. I believe that the white man should return to Europe and should have never came over here. Throughout history, if you see the Greeks or the Romans or any civilization that started, the Egyptians, that started to intermingle with foreigners, in a sense, outsiders of their racial groups, eventually they've destroyed themselves.
But wait, the letter creates a problem. Because whatever happened later, Troy had already written about hurting Blackman weeks before. The letter told you what he intended to do. What happened next showed you what that looked like in practice.
They forged his name, requesting that my brother go to the infirmary.
I filled out what they call a medical request slip for Blackman to get him out of his cell on a particular day.
The guard came to my brother's cell and said, "Hey, you ready to go?" And my brother's, "What do you mean? Ready to go where?"
They came over my intercom in my cell and said, "Daniels, you're going to medical today." And I knew it was the day.
Then he built the tools to execute his idea.
I prepared. I got a knife and I got a handcuff key. And we were restrained. We were going down to medical.
Both men were cuffed to the waist walking down to medical. Troy had already gotten his hands free. What happened next was captured on camera.
He was sporting his colors, flying his bandana.
When he got to the infirmary, Troy, Kell, and Eric Daniels and another inmate were there.
The next thing I know, Blackman's running towards me,
and it was armed.
Dang, so right again, here you see him down here holding his legs, and you see him basically on top of him, straddling them, and going to work on him. I'm wondering if he was handcuffed then, the black man. It seems so, right? Because the other two were handcuffed as well, or they were handcuffed, and then he said that he had a handcuff key and got out of his handcuffs. We don't know how he got out of his handcuffs. I don't trust anything. The cops could have let him out of his handcuffs, the correctional officers or anything. Could have gave him the handcuff key, turned a blind eye. I don't know. I'm taking the story somewhat with a grain of salt, just knowing what I know. Nevertheless, however they ended up out of the cuffs, they're out of the cuffs. So I'm just wondering if the black man, if he was ever cuffed up, then he's still cuffed up. He didn't have a way to get out of his cuffs. He didn't have a handcuff key. I'm sure he didn't have a knife either. He coming in there thinking that he's going to medical for some reason, even though he didn't put in the medical slip. Excuse me, when they call him out for medical, yeah, he goes. He didn't say, he's not going to say, well, no, I don't want to go to medical. Or what they calling me to medical for? You don't know why they calling you. They may have found something in your blood with an x-ray or whatever. You don't know why they calling you to medical, particularly if you haven't put in a medical slip. I don't know, because I don't know the nature of that environment right there where they were at. And Troy Kell here says that they had gotten into it and that essentially they agreed to handle it once they see one another. Once they're able to get to one another to handle it. So depending on the intensity of that confrontation, I would think that the black man would be somewhat prepared, particularly if you didn't put in a medical slip, to maybe see some sort of setup. But hindsight is 20/20, of course. You can look back on it and say, well, how's he really going to know? The police come to your door and say, you're going to medical. You just think, okay, I'm going to medical. They've done it to me many times. Come to my side, you're going to medical. Okay. Whether I put in a slip or not, I don't think you're going to think that you're going in there with two individuals lying in wait. You know that they're cuffed up like you. Perhaps they're already on lockdown there since they can't get to each other and they had to put in a medical slip and forge his name to get him to medical. But look how conniving and sinister these individuals are. They had a confrontation and decided to handle it. So it's not necessarily that he's a booty warrior or a booty bandit. That's what the title says. And that's what somewhat the individual, Troy Kell, I guess at first said, or said at some point that he was a booty bandit or a booty warrior, but that's not what it was about, right? Troy Kell just said that they had, someone else had a fight, two other individuals. Somehow these two individuals, Troy Kell and the brother, got involved or whatever, began to argue or whatever over the fight that someone else was having. But we also know that Troy Kell is a certified, self-admitted racist, or maybe not even self-admitted, because we know that at first he was trying to make it seem like he wasn't. And people like to say that it's about race every time a white man stands up for himself. But as we can see, as the individual there is saying, who is having the interview, he prophesied this murder weeks ahead of time with his friends and his racist friends in Nevada, in which he had sent them a kite, mentioned this brother, however he said his name inside of the kite, and that he had a problem with this dude and whatever, they're going back and forth, and called him a nappy-headed monkey, and that he's going to settle the score with this dude. He's going to take care of it or whatever. Who knows what they said back to him? Yeah, get him, or what have you. Remember, this is the group he had joined when he first went to prison in Nevada. So this whole thing about the dude being a booty warrior, and a booty bandit, as if he was protecting himself from some monster, doesn't seem to be the case at all. It seems to be that you involved yourself in someone else's business. Someone else was having a spat, a get down of some sort, be it physical or verbal altercation. And as he said, they got involved in it. He got involved in it, and so did the brother, and they started getting into it. So at any rate, that's what it was over. Him getting involved in someone else's situation, and him just being a racist, clearly, and wanting to attack this brother, right? He's saying this in a kite. He's saying this in a kite to his racist friends. Damn.
We need back in for the medical.
Yeah.
We're going to be swapping over down here.
Yeah.
He He stabbed Blackman 67 times over the course of 2.5 minutes, with 9 of them to the eyes. Only 2 were deep enough to kill him fast.
I just stabbed the shit out of him, until he didn't move anymore.
Why did you stab him so many times?
All I can explain really is that he kept moving.
The rest were not meant to be fast. While it happened, the guards cleared the civilians out. Then they went to put their gear on.
The prison guards saw this happening. There were civilians there. The guard ushers them out. They then go and get into full riot gear. My brother's still being stabbed. They come in and then they grab Kell and this other guy. Well, my brother's dying by then. It's just too much time has elapsed.
By the time anyone came through that door, Lonnie Blackman had bled out on the floor, and Troy wasn't finished telling you who he was.
I don't believe in the heaven and hell thing. It's a control mechanism to control the masses, and it's run by fear. And I don't believe in any fire.
Hey, man, that's crazy. That's cold. They cold-blooded. They cold-blooded. Hit him in the eyes 9 times. Stabbed him 67 times, 9 times in the eyes. Ooh, that's brutal. That's torture. That's a torturous death that brother suffered right there. You imagine? Put yourself in that position, lying down. Again, I still don't know if he was handcuffed. Looks like it. Actually, I'm gonna say it looks like it because he's laying down on his side with his back to us. But it looks like it because I don't see his hands moving anywhere. I see him moving his head some, trying to move around, and that's it. We can see why he's not able to move his legs because the one dude is only holding his legs. But for his hands not to be able to move, that's the first thing you're going to do is try to protect yourself and have your hands up, swinging back and trying to get him up off you, block the knife thrust or something. You're going to be moving your hands around in that situation. I don't see his hands moving one time, just his head. He's trying to move his head around. You can't. If he handcuffed and the dude got his legs, we can see what happened there. He don't stand a chance. And there's 2 dudes on him. One got his legs and one straddling him, hitting him, and he cuffed up. He can't move. He just sitting there taking it. He's trying to move his head some. He's trying to get it, but what can he do? And he hitting him right in the eye. He's trying to move. He can't move too much. He hitting him right in the eye. These individuals are cold. They're vicious. And black people just don't do this sort of stuff. Even in prison, really. They will stab you 67 times, hit you in the eye and this and that, because you still just don't get how violent these individuals are. I don't know how they don't get it. After just one cursory look at history, you understand the extreme barbaric and violent nature of these individuals. They like to tell you and convince you that you're the violent one. You a fool to believe it. You better study just a little bit of history and understand the violent, the barbarism that is steeply embedded in these. I'm talking about the sickening crimes, the dehumanization and the sickening crimes against humanity, the violent crimes. Then you'll understand how something like this can happen. But when you're peaceful and loving and forgiving and have been taught just to be violent and hate your own people, like black people have, and to give everyone else a pass, and then you're not prepared for something like this because you don't think that they would do something like this. You've been taught that only your own people are violent. Foolish. I know I just turned it into something else, but it just came to my mind. I mean, how's this brother even in this situation? But it wasn't much that he can do, obviously. Again, looks like he's cuffed up and he just got called to medical. He's not thinking anything. I wouldn't be thinking anything like this either. Police come to my cell and say, come on, go to medical. Lockdown. Looks like if they all cuffed up, they must be on some sort of lockdown. They're in the hold or whatever. They're on lockdown, what have you. You want to get out of your cell in that situation. They come to escort you. You'll take that walk. Come on, man. Cuff me up, whatever. Get me out of this cell for 15, 20 minutes. Walk me to medical and I got something to do. Yeah, it happens all the time. You want to get out. You're not going to sit there and say, no. Sometimes, you might, no, I don't want to go to medical. Of course, that could have saved his life, but he's not knowing what's going on, obviously. I wouldn't be thinking something like that either, even if I had gotten into it with someone. that they didn't put a medical slip in my name, forged my name, forged my signature. And now this is why they're calling me out to medical. And even for whatever reason they're calling me out to medical, I know that everyone is going to be handcuffed, supposedly. Everyone's supposed to be in handcuffs. So I'm about to be shackled up from the waist down, or shackled at my waist and handcuffed. Everyone else is too, which they were. Again, sinister. They had sinister machinations. These individuals had plotted with handcuff keys, got a knife, got out of the cuffs. He's still in the cuffs. He had help with the dude holding him down. Took his life. It was over. He probably looked bad too. Stabbed in the eye 9 times. He probably looked bad. They in there trying to work on him and save his life. They probably looked at something horrific, something out of a horror film. And
pits or any pie in the sky. I think once you're dead, you're dead.
After that, they put him on trial for it. Inside the prison, they built a courtroom behind the walls because moving him was just too dangerous.
I will tell you that I've never seen anything like that in my life. I got more and more horrified the more I watched it, and as I had to watch it over and over again to prepare for the case. I actually, to the point where we had to count the number of stab wounds. After watching the videotape initially, several nights I had problems sleeping.
Then Troy took the stand, and something happened that nobody in that room expected. He unleashed another version of him.
Troy Kell did take the stand. He was very articulate, very intelligent, and was able to bring up emotion, which at the time appeared to be genuine. And in fact, he addressed the victim's family, who happened to be in the audience from Arkansas.
From the witness stand, he asked if after he finished testifying, if he could talk to me and my dad one-on-one and sit down. And he said, sit down as men and talk.
Told him how sorry he was that he had killed their son, their brother, and he actually was crying at the time, which I've got to say, as a prosecutor, it was one of the more remarkable events I had seen from a defendant testifying on the stand.
There were I think 8 women on the jury and 4 men, and I kind of looked over it when he was testifying, and some of the women were crying.
A killer, weeping, apologizing to the father of the man he butchered, and the jury felt it. There was just one problem.
Fortunately for us, before Troy Kell had taken the stand to testify, he had told 2 of the guards that were transporting him to and from the courtroom, "Watch this, I'm going to win an Academy Award."
He told them he was going to win an Academy Award. Then he walked up there and cried on cue. The guards testified to it. The jury heard both, the tears and what he said before the tears. Here's the part that should mess with you.
Yeah, I was fighting for my life. I did what I had to do to try to save my life. But I didn't, the emotional part of it was genuine to his family.
So if I understand you right, you're saying that you meant what you said to that father, that wasn't an act, that wasn't fake.
No, I meant what I said to him. I mean, they want to downplay it because they're fighting to win the case.
So was it an act or wasn't it? He told the guards it was. He swears to this day it wasn't. I'll leave it up to you. One of them can't be true. But anyways, the jury decided they'd seen enough. They put him on death row for a man already serving life who killed again on camera and almost talked his way out of it with a performance. Which leaves one question, the one this whole thing has been circling around. What was Troy Kell? A cold-blooded killer or the final product of a violent system?
You suck ass long enough, pretty soon you start choking on shit.
In my opinion.
What do you think he was? It's not the system. But look at that. It looked like it was heading in a direction where he was about to get off. There were 8 women on the jury, and the brother said he looked up and they were all there crying. The women were crying when Troy there was on the stand crying. Like, what the hell? What are y'all crying for? Because they were not crying for the man who was cuffed up and stabbed 67 times and 9 times in the eye while someone held his legs down on camera. That's not why they were crying. The prosecutor even said it kept him up at night for many nights, watching that video over and over. I would think so if you're a human being, regardless of who's receiving it. But the jury, they're sitting there crying, probably all white women, because Troy there is crying. Poor Troy. Poor Troy, who done stabbed this man in the eyes 9 times and stabbed him 67 times in total. And he was dead right there on the floor. He didn't die on the way to the hospital. He was dead right there. Stopped moving right there. He was already done. And they watched this video, did the jury. And they didn't cry. They cried when Troy got on the stand and started crying, faking like he cared, putting on this Academy Award performance. And it looks like they probably, who knows what would have happened if those guards wouldn't have testified and said what they said. This is crazy.
There are 2 of them, and you've now seen both. There's this one.
I just stabbed the shit out of him, until he didn't move anymore. And I don't believe in any fiery pits or any pie in the sky. I would classify myself as a separatist. I believe that the white man should return to Europe.
Talked about how in his terms, a nappy-headed monkey had been running his mouth, and this nappy-headed monkey was going to get his, and there's going to be pain and suffering involved in that.
The man who wrote it down before he did it, who cried on command and told the guards it was an act. And then there's this one.
Afterwards, I felt, man, goddamn, why'd you kind of make me do that? I didn't weigh in the fact that he was a father or a brother or a son to anybody. I didn't see him as a human person.
How much longer do you expect to be alive?
I don't know. I can't even answer that question. I can't even answer that. I don't know. I really don't know. I hope a long time. But I go through that all the time. So I don't know.
You go through what else?
I go through with making the decision of, living through this shit or not.
3 decades later, on a prison phone line, a man who finally sees the person he erased. Both of those are the same man. He went into prison at 18 for a murder he committed to impress a girl. The state handed him the rest of his life and a cage full of men with nothing left to lose. And somewhere along the way, he became the man you watched on that tape.
Because I fucked my life off. So, I've been pissed off since I've been 18 years old.
So you tell me, was Troy Kell a monster who'd have done this anywhere to anyone, no matter what door you cut behind? Or was he an 18-year-old sentenced to spend the rest of his life inside a system that rewarded violence and punished weakness?
No. And again, the title there is When a White Supremacist Stabbed a Booty Bandit 67 Times on Camera. That's the title of that video. When a white supremacist stabbed a booty bandit 67 times on camera. That will not be my title. It will probably be when a white supremacist stabbed a black man 67 times on camera. I don't know anything about that man being a booty bandit at all. And oftentimes they say this sort of stuff as to victim shame and victim blame as if to justify this man's actions. Now, of course, the courts did not justify it. He's on death row, and so is the other individual who was there with a couple of years to do for forgery at first before he decided to participate in this. And he blames on the fact that he went to a maximum security prison as opposed to a minimum security prison, which is where he should have been for a charge like forgery. That's all true. Nevertheless, you're still responsible for your own actions, whatever prison that you wound up in. And to say that the man, is a booty bandit, when I first saw the title, so I know exactly why they would put that in the title, because when I first saw the title, it sounds like someone stabbed this man 67 times to protect themselves, to protect their manhood. That this man was a booty bandit who, the implication is that he was trying to take his booty, obviously. And that's why he stabbed him 67 times. If he's a booty bandit, other than that, why say that? And then watching the video, I see anyway, that it had absolutely nothing to do with this man trying to assault this man physically or take his manhood in some sort of way, that he was a bandit in any sort of way. They said that he was tough, that he had assaulted some other guards, the individual who lost his life, the brother, Blackman, but nothing about some sort of homosexuality or nothing. So I don't know where that comes from other than the victim shaming or victim blaming or justification for this man's actions. Because instead of it being that, and that, again, that's what I thought when I first saw the title, we find out that it was over someone, both of them, one of them first getting involved in someone else's situation. Someone else had some sort of spat, some sort of squabble, what have you. And as Troy Kell there said, that they got into it over two other individuals. They exchanged words and agreed, basically, he said, these are his words, that they agreed to take care of it, to handle it. And he had already determined when he first went to prison, he wasn't going to be anyone's, girl, or he wasn't going to wash anyone's clothes. He was going to come in a man and he was going to leave a man, and etc. And you couple that with the fact that he's an overt, staunch racist who hates black people, calling them nappy-headed monkeys. And when the prosecutor says he prophesized weeks ahead what was going to happen, no, he conspired weeks ahead. He talked about it weeks ahead. He was planning it already weeks ahead. And so that's not a situation where someone tried to take my manhood and I had to defend myself, and so I stabbed him 67 times. This was a whole setup, a whole conspiracy, put in a medical slip for him, forged his name. They had a handcuff key to get out of the handcuffs, came with a knife, came with a plan to kill him. He had already said, I wasn't going to stab him 2 times and say we're even. I'm going to keep going until he stopped moving. And we see how brutal the attack was. So it's not a situation of a booty bandit and this man defending himself from some sort of bandit, as, again, it appeared from the title. That's not what happened. So that won't be my title. What happened was, whatever the situation was, however they got into it, wherever they got into it, he decided that he was going to kill him. That's it. Apparently having nothing to do with his backside. So there you go. There you have it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Rest in peace to that brother. Stay out of prison, y'all. It's vicious. It's dangerous. It's ugly. It's violent. No one has mercy on you. No one. The guards just sit there and let you die. They do it all the time. We've seen footage of different situations where the guards are literally standing right there as an individual is getting bust down by 5, 6 people, bust opened up, leaked out. And the guards standing right there. They might spray their mace or something. They're not trying to get in there and get it. You're on your own. You are on your own. And that's not good. Stay safe and stay free. People.